Hey guys, Brian here with Better Chess Training, and today we're going to continue our tactics training. Uh, one note I wanted to make here is that, especially right before big tournament, I'm going to a big tournament this weekend, and I don't play very often. So one of the best ways to stay sharp is to do difficult tactics problems as well as some easy ones as well. But the idea is to keep that mind working so that you're ready to go when the tournament comes. Of course, there's other things for preparation, and I talk about that in other videos, but that's one reason why I've been sharing some of my tactics videos lately. So let's get started. Okay, we have our first problem here, and it looks like it's white to play. Material looks to be about even with two uh, rooks or a queen. But we see here that this rook is attacked and that, well, we see that this rook is attacked and also that um, this pawn can promote. However, what I'm noticing here is that this king is currently there's a big threat here on the back rank. So I guess the question is there a way to get back there? We also see that the c4 pawn is hanging. So any solution would have to take that into account, and mainly because this can be taken with check. So one of our candidates would be rook to d3. I think, let's see here, rook to d3, queen c4 check. So that can be problematic because after the king moves or blocks, this um, rook is hanging. So that does not look so great. Uh, the other, let's see here, what other thoughts do we have here? Now, do have moves here like rook to b3. And the idea is here is this rook can't be taken because of this checkmate threat. Rook to b3, and then if queen to c4 check, uh, can we just do king to h3? Because this rook would be covering f1 for this check, and I don't see any other safe checks for. I don't see any other safe checks for the black queen. So I think rook to b3 is the answer. Let's see here. Rook to b3, queen to c4 check is the main candidate we have to look at here. And then um, I think king to h3 would be the move. I'm just trying to check here. With king to h3, the third rank is blocked, f1 is blocked, and there's no way to get up here to put in any checks, and any other check around the king the would just be captured. So I think it is rook to b3, queen to c4 check, and you just double check here just in case. What about g4? That seems to be equivalent. Um, I have to. I'm trying to figure out if there's any reason why g4 is not as good as king to h3. So again, this is one of those situations where one probably better than the other, but I need to find out why. Now, king to h3, the only checks that I see here are queen to f1, but then rook takes f1 or anything else. If this tries to promote, I think we just take it here. So with g4, with g4, queen to f4, covering b8. But I think it has to be king to h3, and now he has to take, and that is that. So very important to see there that two they both looked equivalent, but one of them had a serious flaw. So you need to find that, and that's an important part of the training. Okay, let's go on to the next problem. Okay. So here again, it's white to move. Looks like we've got some pressure here on the black king, but we have a threatened checkmate here on g2. So we have to make sure that our solution is quite forcing. Let's see here. We also see here that this knight is on pre. So off the bat, I'm already looking at moves like e6 check. And then if something like, well, king to f6, then queen to e5, I believe is mate. King takes g7. And what do I have there? I have queen takes e7 check, king takes h8, and unfortunately, I don't know if I have a follow up there, other than maybe, well, I did have queen to h4 check, and the king can come back to, we could go to g8. And I don't really see a follow up from there. So e6 check might work, but let's take a look at a couple other options. We also have moves like, oh, you know what? Let's see, e6 check. Oh, this is e6 check. King takes g7, and then we could still go queen to e5 check. But then we have problem we have there is bishop to f6, and again he's still threatening mate there. It'd be difficult to see where to go from there. At the very least, I could get perpetual check. So I guess the question is whether or not there is more to be had there. The other thought I had here was, oh, here we go. Queen takes e7 check, forces, king takes e7, and then I have rook to c7 check. And let's see, do we have a follow up here? Knight to see. I don't think that's. Well, partly the king can just go to d8 there, so that doesn't quite work right away. Queen takes e7 check, king takes e7, rook to c7 check, king to, oh, maybe king to d8, then knight to e6 check. This knight is pinned. That would be mate, but what about queen takes e7 check, king takes e7, rook to c7 check, knight to c7? Then I don't quite see effective follow up there. So let's see if there's any way to combine those ideas of queen takes d7 and here. What if we had, let's try e7, e6 check again. Well, no, before I do that, let's see, are there any other, it has to be some type of check, I think, because of this mating threat right here. So the only ones were e6 check, queen takes e7 check, and here we have rook takes f8 check, and might also be an option. Rook takes f8 check, king takes f8, and unfortunately, I don't know if it goes any further. Let's see, we have knight to e6 check, And then if he just goes king to f7 again, then what do we have? We have, or even king to g8, I think just shuts everything down because there are no more safe checks. And I don't see any like queen to c8 check, rook takes c8, rook takes c8 check, king to f7 again, and then this knight would be hanging. So we don't have any type of Arabian mate here with rook to f8 check. So rook takes f8 check, I don't think is the option. Let's go back again. e6 check. I think this has the most promise here. e6 check, and then I believe king takes g8 is forced, and then we have queen takes e7 check. Do I have anything where I can? Oh, here's a thought. We have e6 check, king takes g7, and the problem here was I was thinking queen to e5 check, bishop to f6, but now we also have rook to c7 check here. And if at that point king, so the king can only take on h8 at that point, because the rook is covering the 8th rank and the h file. Then we have queen takes f6 check. It's a mate in 2. I think that's the answer. 6 check. Oh, that looks to be incorrect. So, and I think I see why here because of this. I did not calculate this knight takes e6. So we will take a look at that and come back to that. Unfortunately, uh, I see what I did wrong, so we'll have to look at that post-mortem and take a look there. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, just a little post-mortem analysis of this particular position. And actually, it's very interesting here. Um, queen takes e7 is the solution. Now, before we go on with that, the thing that I missed here is that after e6 check, then knight takes e6 is the move that I missed for black. I assumed that it was going to be king takes g7. So if we go back, queen takes e7 and king takes e7 is forced. Rook takes e7. Now we did see up to this point, and we saw knight to d7. But the thing that I failed to see, here was here, uh, bishop to b4 check. So I totally forgot about this bishop on d2, and then after king to f7, which is forced, we have rook takes d7 is checkmate. So actually fairly not a very difficult problem, but I had a little blindness not seeing that extra piece. So when you're solving your problem, I hope you guys got that, even though I wasn't able to. And sometimes you get a little tunnel vision and you don't see everything that's on the board. So okay, let's get back to solving problems. Okay, here we have, let's see here. Looks to be a pretty straightforward problem. This knight is checking me here on the king on g3, and of course, if I go to h3, then we have this knight check here. But if I go to f3, then what do we have here? Knight to g3, king to g3, king to h1. And the threat here is to promote. And of course, if I take on g2, that is stalemate. So let's see here. King to f3. And let's say knight to g3. Oh, well, then I could just play this check. Rook, h2 check. So if So I think the idea here is that the knight cannot move out. So, for example, knight to f2, then I think I would just play rook to a1 check, and then after king to h2, take with the king. And now he cannot promote here without getting taken with the rook. I think king to f2 is a first move, and then if knight to um, if knight to g3, take with the king, or actually rook to g2 check. Now, after king to f3, of course, he cannot play king to f1, but he can play king to h2. And in that case, I think I would just say rook takes g2 check should also win. So king to f3. Okay. And then here, the key again, I think, is not to take with the rook, because then after king to h1 is to instead check right here. Okay. Then I'm going to, do I check again? I check again. Then he plays king to h2, and then I can play f1, king to f2. Okay. And f2. Okay. So we got that one right. Let's go on to the next one. Okay. He's just played c7. I'm playing black here. Looks like he's threatening to promote. And the big issue here is, what can I do to stop that? The many threats here. Rook to b1 check, rook to d1 check. So let's look at counterattacking against the king. And this looks promising. Rook to a2 check. And then the king can either go to h3 or f3. If he goes to h3, then rook to h1, rook to h1 is checkmate. And then if he goes to f3, then again I think rook to d3 is checkmate. So that should be, it looks like a simple mate in two. Okay, he's blocking here. I just want to make sure there's no stalemate options. I don't think so. I think I could just take. Then this looks like checkmate. Okay, pretty straightforward problem. Okay, so we got 3 out of 4. Let's try to make it 4 out of 5. Okay. They're always interesting. These are these checkmate patterns around here. We always want to look for potential, Boden's mate here, but this bishop is in the wrong spot. So see here what it looks like material's even, but I think the idea here is, can we, well, we don't have to checkmate him. We could just win material. So bishop to d3 looks like it would win quite handily, as there doesn't seem to be any it pins this knight, and there's not a way to add a this rook to the defense. So that would just win a knight. So let's see if we can get more. Bishop to d3, kind of our standby move here. And of course, if I had 2 moves in a row, I would play this bishop to um, c4 first, so I could play um, rook takes c6 check with this Boden's mate. But I don't think that's, let's see. Well, let's see. Bishop to c4. And then I think he can just play his knight to c5 to stop it. So I think bishop to d3 looks to be the simplest answer here. Let's see here. Bishop to d3, and then let's say he plays here with b4, or I'm sorry, g5, looking at the board the wrong way, and I could just play bishop to g3, and then he can get one check in. Bishop takes, or a bishop to e3 check, and then king to b1. Then he's out of checks. And then it looks pretty straightforward from there. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Rook takes d7, rook takes d7, bishop to d3, I think is not as good because of this rook can come over here to d8. A bishop takes, or a bishop to e6. Yeah, I've been calling it d3, I think. Bishop to e6, bishop to c7, and I think we just take with the rook. Same thing if bishop here. So I think it is bishop to e6. Let's try it. Okay. And bishop to c7 here. And I think, oh, I see. He gets this in with check first. So I think, okay, I did not see that. Bishop to c7. And then, oh, let's see here. If I take with the bishop, bishop to d7 check. King goes here to b8. Well, this is the tricky part. So normally I would want to calculate this ahead of time, but the other one is rook takes d7, bishop takes f4 check. This last one's a little tricky. Rook takes d7, bishop takes f4 check. First I was looking at rook to. Oh, you know what? I can play. I'll say rook 6 to d2 check. So problem is then this bishop is pinning this rook also. So that does not look so great. The other thought I had was rook takes c6, and after b takes c6, bishop takes c7 work? I'm not sure about that. Okay, so I've got bishop takes f7 or d7 check, king to b8. Do I have a follow up from there? Uh, I don't see one. Now, is there any way to? Is there any way that we can make this pin ineffective? I mean, is it? I don't think we can let him take here. Let's look. Rook takes d7. F takes, or I'm sorry, bishop takes f4 check. one thought I had was something like rook 1 to d2, but after bishop takes d2 check, rook takes d2 check, discover check, then it looks like I'm actually down material, so I don't think that's the answer either. Well, let's take a look at this. Rook takes d7, bishop takes f4 check. What if I just play king to b1? Then they're a follow-up. I think material is about even. I'm looking at rook takes c6. I'm looking at rook takes d7. Looking at bishop takes d7. Bishop takes d7 I don't think does anything. Now, rook takes c6. B takes c6. B takes c6. Um, now I don't. Uh, this this pin is annoying, and I didn't see it when I initially made this move. Now it is the correct move, so we are on the correct uh, variation here. We just have to find the solution. Somehow rook takes d7 still looks good to me. Is even so. Then my thought is even after rook takes f4 check, after king to b1, I mean he still has to deal with uh, this discovered attack. So it's still very dangerous. Rook takes d7, bishop takes f4 check, king to b1, and then the threat, of course, is rook takes d8 check. So if he takes with the rook, rook takes d7, then I play rook takes d7, there's still this discovered check, and then if he tries to move, then what do I have here? Do I have anything? Um, like rook to g7, but then this pawn is hanging. So that doesn't look totally satisfactory either. Oh boy, let's see here. What if I just played something like bishop to g3, getting threatening to get out of the pin? Problem there is that after rook takes, I have rook, bishop takes d6, rook takes d6, and now this knight can move, and then I don't really. Oh, it's pinned. I don't really have a follow up. I feel. I almost feel like it's got to be either rook takes d7 or rook takes c6. Okay, let's just look at this again. Rook takes c6, b takes c6. bishop takes c7, and then if king takes c7, it just doesn't look like I'm getting anything out of that. So rook takes c6 does not look good. Rook takes d7, almost, I guess I just feel like that has to be the solution. Rook takes d7, bishop takes f4 check, king to b1. I know I've looked at this 100 times here. And then if rook takes d7, rook takes d7, and threatening here. Let's look at this one more time. Rook takes d7 check, and I feel like king b8 is forced. What if I didn't take right away? What if I played something like rook to d3, bishop takes f4 check, king to b1? That doesn't look very appetizing either, fortunately. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to find out the hard way. Let's play this. Rook takes d7. Okay, so that is incorrect. It was a 2500 rated problem, and but we spent enough time on it. It's time to learn from that and move forward. Okay, so let's check out how we did overall, or let's check out the problems we got wrong. Okay, let's take a look at this problem here, and here we can see that the first move that I made was correct. Bishop to e6, hitting uh, hitting this knight. And after bishop to c7, I thought about this. Bishop takes d7, but I didn't have the follow up here. But I did mention, interestingly, that if I could somehow relieve this pin, that would be the solution. And that is the solution here with bishop to g3 here, because now if bishop takes, then bishop takes, and after king to a8, you could simply play something like bishop to e7, and you can see these two bishops for the rook are quite superior. If this rook tries to go like here to b8, then we don't have to play this super fast. We can just attack some weaknesses like this, and you can see here now this is going to be problematic trying to defend it. For example, rook to g8 and bishop to e6, and so more pawns are going to fall, and these two bishops are just dominating. So that is the solution for that one, and it's interesting because you can see I was sort of kind of floating around the concept for the solution, but I wasn't able to calculate it out. But now that I've seen this, I'll have that for my in my mind for future similar positions. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. As you can see, I did get a couple wrong, but the idea when you're training in chess, whether you're preparing for a tournament or just trying to get better, is that you're not going to get every single problem right. You're not going to win every game. And the key is to follow up and to learn from your mistakes so that you can do better in the future. With that in mind, uh, and with the idea of preparing for this tournament, I have uh, here a video I made about preparing for tournaments that I think you might enjoy if you haven't seen it already. And keep an eye out for my videos. I'm going to do a couple more videos this week as I prepare for this tournament. Okay, talk to you soon.